Hey, hello. This is teacher Mr. Loria. This is lecture 2 on Romeo and Juliet by the one and the only William Shakespeare. This lecture will bring us to the end or the start of Act 3, and I'm doing this a little bit differently. But I wanted to talk about one, wealth, um, two very important characters, right? Um, and how this influences the play moving forward. Let's start with the question, right? Who knows you the best? Who do you turn to when you need help? Who knows you the best? Is it your mother or is it your father? Think back to when you were maybe 14 or 15. Who knows you the best? I'm going to put on my sunglasses, my backup pair of sunglasses, while you think about that. I don't know where my Ray-Bans are. This is pissing me off. Who knows you the best? Okay, let's begin. I asked who knows you the best because I want you to think about the role of parents in Romeo and Juliet and the role of wealth. Let's talk about the role of wealth. These are two noble households, yes, two wealthy households. These people both have money, and when you grow up with money, this influences your character. Obviously, this influences your societal structure then and now. I had a student write on their last essay, and she was like, I wonder why Juliet's not talking to her mom. I wonder why the nurse is the one that nursed her, literally. And I almost wanted to explain, well, when you're wealthy enough, you can basically outsource your child rearing duties. It's not exactly pleasant to wake up at 2 in the morning to take care of a crying child. Now, this is 2014, and if you go to New York City, you see, let's just say, like Nigerian women pushing around strollers with little white kids in it in like the Wall Street district, right? That's not their kids, right? Um, or to give another example, my sister is going to go on, vacation to Puerto Rico or something with this one family who they have a night nurse. Don't you know? They bring the night nurse to take care of the baby. This woman's job. This is 2014 is to take care of the baby when she's crying at night. So this still happens, um, right? And the two main characters, right? We'll start with Juliet, then we'll go to Romeo. The character that knows Juliet the best, certainly not Juliet, is not Lady Capulet. It's the nurse. It is the nurse. So, what kind of person is the nurse? And what's her effect on Juliet as kind of her confidant? Um, the nurse is a sexual kind of funny, loyal character who really does seem to have Juliet's best interests in mind. Who really does care about Juliet as a person. There's a scene. This is 2-4, about 165. I switched to the Folger. I couldn't put up with that crappy, simplified English one. But whatever, follow along. It's about 165, 2-4. Yeah, when she comes to Romeo to deliver the message from Juliet that like, let's do this thing, she prefaces it with a warning to Romeo. She's like, I'm going to deliver this message, but first, I want you to know that first, let me tell you, if you should lead in a fool's paradise, as they say, it would be a very gross kind of behavior, as they say. For the gentlewoman is young, and therefore, if you shall deal trouble with her, truly it would an ill thing to be offered to any gentlewoman in very weak dealing. Then Romeo responds, Nurse, command to lady and mistress, I protest unto thee, good heart, and in faith I will tell her as much. Right? Lord, Lord, she will be a joyful woman. She kind of makes Romeo swear that he's going to treat her well before, she's like, I'll help you out. I think that's interesting. I think that's a cute little moment. Nurse is a good character. Who knows Romeo the best? By the way, I think this play is mistitled. It should be Juliet and Romeo. I mean, Juliet's the strong character. Who knows Romeo the best? I think it's Friar Lawrence. Friar Lawrence is a fascinating character. He's a very interesting character in this play, and there's a lot to him. There's a whole lot to him. He doesn't have that many lines, but he's deep character. He's interesting too. I mean, let's remember that at the time, the Catholic Church in Renaissance Europe, they kind of held back. They were the keepers of knowledge, right, and of scientific progress. I mean, Catholic monks discovered the cell, for instance, and genetics and all that, or they were instrumental in that. Anyhow, I digress. Right, Friar Lawrence. He starts off with a monologue And I think there's an interesting point to this, and it's usually depicted as him, kind of plucking around with like plants and stuff in modern renditions. And he starts off, and this is pretty cool. I don't know how you wake up in the morning, but Friar Lawrence goes about and goes on these monologues about like the earth's beauty and like this mystic splendor. I almost see him as a blend between those like previous like church like mystical saints like Saint Anthony, for instance, those hermits who would go out and like trip and like see the universe and God and stuff. Like Saint Francis would be another, and then like the scientists. So he's got a little bit of both, and he's going through. And there's a really important point I think in 2-3 about line 10, right? The earth, that nature's mother, is her tomb. What is her burning grave? That is her womb. And from her womb, children of diviners, right? That's us. Kind, we sucking on her natural bosom find. Many for many virtues excellent, none but for some, and yet all different, right? Different. Let's focus on that. I think Friar Lawrence is a different kind of priest than most. He's pretty hip and understanding. He's almost like, like Pope Francis right now is a different kind of pope. Like, it stands out, right? He's not your stuffy, I will sit upon my pontificate throne and like, in your normal kind of Pope as king figure, right? Francis is different. I think Friar Lawrence is different. And I think that proves it starting right there. Um, People sometimes just like hold up the Bible to justify, treating the earth like, we were stewards of the earth. This intro scene from Friar Lawrence is it the opposite view, which says that like we are also children of the earth, and like we suckle from its bosom, like we are indebted to earth, not like earth, we are here to dominate the animals and stuff, right? So I think that's maybe the purpose of that intro speech, where he's like tripping out and like thinking about how beautiful everything is when in stumbles Romeo, early in the morning. And I think there's a couple funny points here, and there's a couple points that solidify that there's a lot of prior knowledge that Friar Lawrence has about Romeo. Right? Romeo comes in, he's like, good morrow, father, and they're going back and forth, right? And Friar Lawrence is looking at me, he's like, you didn't sleep last night, did you? Right? And he's like, Romeo, this is 2-3-45. That last is true, the sweeter rest was mine, right? I think this is a hilarious response. God pardon sin, was thou with Rosaline? Like, he's like, you didn't go to bed last night, but you had some sweet rest, right? The priest, he understands what that means, right? But Romeo quickly is like, no, not Rosaline, ugh, right? No, and he's kind of going off, right? Where were you, right? Romeo again, kind of going off. Friar Lawrence is like, let's cut your crap, right? Be plain, good son, and homely in thy drift, right? So he knows Romeo. He knows Romeo's a very verbose, kind of flowery speaker, and Friar Lawrence is like, cut to the point, right? What was happening? He says too, like, and this is around like 70, Rosaline, that thou lovest so dear, so soon forgotten, right? So I think that shows like Romeo had spoken to Friar Lawrence several times, maybe about Rosaline, and he has a beautiful line here: "Young men's love lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes." And then at the end of that speech, right, women may fall when there's no strength in men, right? So again, like Friar Lawrence has these insights into relationships, into the young men and kind of their erratic nature of love. And he knows Romeo in that, and this comes into play later. I mean, he kind of like smacks Romeo around. He's like, snap out of it. You sound like you're crazy right now. Like, you got to focus. Like, we got to do these things. So I think that Friar Lawrence is a super cool character. I think he's very interesting. It's also interesting to note that neither Romeo or Juliet, for neither of them, their parents know them well. In fact, right, Romeo never speaks to his parents in the course of this play, which is interesting. Juliet has a couple very interesting points with her parents coming up. I'm going to save those for the next lecture probably, but wealth influences Romeo and Juliet. We're going to see that and really negative effects of that on Romeo later. Influences their upbringing and also influences who knows them best. All right, that's lecture 2, Romeo and Juliet. Andale pues, life is beautiful, life is good. We'd be in touch.